New research published just in the last day or two suggests that as many as 1,600 jobs have been lost in the community pharmacy sector in just the last 9 months, and that includes 300 pharmacists. We've had one newly elected president on this morning of the Road Haulage Association. Here's our second. Darragh O'Loughlin is the newly elected president of the Irish Pharmacy Union. Good morning, Darragh.
Good morning, Ken.
Darragh, that's pretty serious statistics for your profession. 1,600 jobs, 300 pharmacists. What's going on?
Well, as you recall, Clem, last summer the government introduced some fairly severe cuts in what they pay pharmacies for the medicines that we dispense to patients with medical cards and on the other state schemes. And as a result of those cuts, just in an effort to stay viable and to stay competitive, pharmacies have had to cut their costs and unfortunately have cut their manpower and their staff requirements at the same time. So over the course of the last 9 months, 1,600 jobs have been lost across community pharmacies in Ireland.
It's one profession that's attracted huge interest, particularly in the last 10 years, from Leaving Cert students who wanted to engage the courses. Are there many pursuing the courses in the various universities?
Well, we have the 3 schools of pharmacies now in the country, but I did see when the CAO released their figures about 6 weeks ago that the applications for pharmacy were down by 26%, which meant of all the courses in the colleges that are operated through the CAO, the pharmacy applications dropped by the greatest percentage.
And Darragh, in terms of the changing face of the profession, many pharmacy graduates are now getting work with what I would call the pharmacy chains, which is a new phenomenon in this country. Yes,
well, we have no regulations in this country in terms of who can own or operate a pharmacy. So subject to abiding by all the various laws, anybody, any company or any individual can own or operate a pharmacy.
So I could open a pharmacy, but I presume I have to employ a properly qualified pharmacist.
And that's it exactly, Clem, and that is why so many now of the graduates coming out of college are working with the larger companies that are operating chains of pharmacies, because each pharmacy does have to have a minimum of 1 qualified pharmacist working in it. But it's a recent phenomenon now that we're seeing pharmacists who can't get jobs when they qualify, and some are even having difficulty getting the training place or the internship, which they must do for 12 months after getting their degree so that they can register as a pharmacist. And a lot of the young students and the young pharmacists are having real difficulty getting work and getting those training places, which is a source of sadness for those of us who've been in the profession for many years.
It is affecting, of course, every profession, Darragh.
It is. The professions have all been hit very, very hard, and we don't claim that pharmacy is unique in it. We know that dentists and architects and so on are all suffering their own issues. But it was something of a surprise to us. We asked PricewaterhouseCoopers to do this research across pharmacies, which they did in February of this year, and it was a surprise to us that so many jobs had been lost, particularly that 300 pharmacists had lost their jobs, in addition to 1,300 support staff.
So, in terms of what does your union want, or what kind of...
Well, we want the Minister to realise and to be very aware that while budgets are still under pressure and we recognise spending has to be cut, that there is no scope to cut pharmacy any further. We've lost 1,600 jobs. Pharmacies have had to make those cuts, but as a result of reducing their staff, they've had to stop providing a lot of services that had been provided for free, whether it's health screening services or out of hours, delivery of prescription for housebound patients, monitored dose dispensing, all the various add-on services that were provided without charge to patients who particularly needed them are being curtailed now. Pharmacy staff have had their hours cut and their pay cut even where they haven't lost their job. So what we would want the Minister and the HSE to do now is to recognise the resource that they have with 1,500 or 1,600 pharmacies across the country, and recognise that we are ready and able to provide a lot more services very cost effectively on behalf of the state, whether it's minor ailments treatments or medicine use reviews, or working with patients, doctors and with the local hospitals to keep these services in local communities.
But isn't it a case as well, and that's a very well made point, and it's a very important point, that pharmacies will just have to continue to diversify, because your local pharmacy now is much more than just something that dispenses medicines. It's a one-stop, nearly little mini market.
Pharmacies have had to diversify their product offerings, and the range of products available in pharmacies has grown very substantially over the last number of years. But at the back of it all, pharmacists are health professionals whose interest is in looking after patients and looking after the public. There is a drive in health systems to deliver more health services in the community rather than pulling people into hospitals for them. And pharmacists are in a position to do warfarin monitoring for patients on warfarin, diabetes monitoring, and to put into place action plans drawn up by patients' GPs for looking after their blood pressure, their diabetes, their blood glucose. Pharmacists, almost 1,000 pharmacists are trained in administering vaccines. That training was done because we had the panic over the swine flu last year. And that's a service now that pharmacies are in a position to offer to patients.
Right. OK, Darragh O'Loughlin, time just beating us. Darragh, the newly elected president of the Irish Pharmacy Union, outlining his concerns and his association's concerns for the sector with the job losses. 300 pharmacists in the last 12 months, 1,600 jobs as the general sector continues to rationalise in the recession. But I suppose we all hope that maybe we have bottomed out and that there is some sort of green shoots for the future. Darragh, congratulations on your appointment. We wish you luck in the next year or so in that, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Clem. Good morning.
We'll talk to you no doubt again in the future. Gerard May